Yeah, I think we can get started now. That sounds great. So hello everyone, welcome. And this is going to be an online conference with Reema Rasool. So Reema, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And it's really nice to finally meet you. I'll give a little introduction on myself and my team. So my name is Serena Lynn. I'm a student in New Jersey and I'm about to graduate middle school. And I'm really looking forward to help MC this conference along with my two fellow interns. So if the others would like to unmute themselves and briefly introduce themselves, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Christopher Yee. I'm a freshman in high school in New York, and I'm also really excited to help.
Hi, my name is Annie. I'm a sophomore and I go to school in Illinois, and I'm really happy to meet you.
Thank you guys. I think we can start the main part of the show. So many of you are interested in Reema's running. So Reema, I will be asking you some questions so that everyone can get familiar with you, your campaign and ideas, and even more. So everyone, feel free to leave your questions for Reema in the chat box. We'll go over them later at the end. So, and if any of you guys have technical difficulties, also please notify us via chat box as well. So to start off, Reema, could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. First, I just want to thank all of you so much for being here. This is my favorite thing to do, to be honest, is talk to students. I'm a mom of two boys. I have a 10th grader. His name is Noah, and I have a 7th grader. His name is Caleb. They are both in the Jericho School District in Long Island, where we live. That's also what the school district that I went through. Where we live now on Long Island, or where this district is, when I was younger, I was one of maybe a handful, literally maybe 4 or 5 Asian kids in my school. Now the same school, believe it or not, is 60% minority. The same school that when I was there was maybe 10%, that's not really, not even 10%, is now 60% minority. And our district is now almost 25% Asian, this district that I'm running in. New York 3. As I said, my name is Reema. I told you guys that I have kids around your age, so it's always really nice to talk to you guys. But I'm an entrepreneur. I have a finance company where I have investors abroad, mostly in Asia and the Middle East, and I raise money for U.S. infrastructure projects. And I've been doing that. I have a company called Lux, and we've been doing that maybe for the past 8 to 10 years now. Also, about 12 years ago, I started a nonprofit for women entrepreneurs called Say We, South Asian women entrepreneurs. And basically what that is, it's a resource, it's a national resource for women who are interested in business and entrepreneurship. We offer a very nominal fee continuing business education. So financial literacy, social media literacy, how to get a small business loan, things like this, also networking, mentorship, women to women. So that, at the time, about 12 years ago, I was looking to start my own business. And my family immigrated from Asia to New York in the 1970s. My parents are both doctors. My brother is also a doctor, and I was the only one. I decided that I wanted to study the arts. So after I finished high school, I actually went to New York University, Tisch School of the Arts, where I have my bachelor's in fine arts, as well as my master's in fine arts in writing. Right after Tisch, my first internship that I got was at Condé Nast, and my internship turned into my first job. And so the first job I had was also at Condé Nast, and I worked in editorial for Cosmopolitan magazine. This is a long time ago. In 2001, I graduated my master's, so you can imagine. And I had a very interesting journey that I love to tell people about. I went from fashion to finance within about 10 years, because my marketing, I was marketing and writing and doing copy for kind of the same people, high net worth individuals globally. And it turned into, as I got a little bit older and I understood how business worked, I realized that fashion is wonderful, but I wanted to make more money. And I realized that that would happen in finance. And so I started doing pretty much the same thing that I was doing for luxury brands, for hedge funds and real estate developers and infrastructure, steel mills being built in Arkansas, Hudson Yards we raised money for that, in New York City, very big development on the West Side. We raised money for, bridges in San Francisco. I think maybe you guys would know about it, but one of our niches of my company was investor immigration, the EB-5 program, which is quite popular abroad. And, basically a international investor invests now, I think the minimum amount is about $800,000 US into a fund. And within a few years, that investor and their family are eligible for US green cards. So, throughout that time, I learned a lot about how our country handles immigration, also how this country handles securities and business internationally. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of started getting into politics when Mr. Trump came into office. I was always, a little kind of socially conservative. But, when he came in, I have two sons in school, and, there was a lot of, bullying happening, and, all of this with the Muslim ban, and, just a lot of racism that I think we didn't see before that is still happening. We see in our communities, and that's kind of when I decided that I think that it's a good idea to start, getting more involved civically, because no matter what, I think if we have to change things, we have to change things from the inside and kind of have more representation in government. And so last year, I decided to run locally for a town board here in my town. And I learned so much about, how elections are run and how the government works, how the local government works. When this opportunity arose, my congressman is running for governor of New York. His name is Tom Suozzi. So this created an open seat here. And I decided that, we need more representation in our communities. All of the candidates running, I'm the only non-white candidate. But I think it's time. I think it's time for us to kind of stand up and take a chance and be brave and start running for office. And that's why I'm here. And I get to meet amazing people like you guys. And so I'm very happy to be here. And this is my most favorite thing. Mostly all of our volunteers are 18-year-old, 12th graders, 11th graders, who are just really interested in the political process and how it works, and how do you get involved, and how do you become a member of a party? How do you, get a seat? How do you get elected? And so, it's a learning curve, but it's a lot of mentorship with this campaign, and we're really enjoying the process of bringing a lot of people and communities along with us that wouldn't maybe necessarily be involved in a congressional campaign.
Thank you so much. So it's really nice to listen about your own experiences through childhood and motherhood and with education that really inspired your goals. And your story really resonated with me because it's great to see someone else who's both interested in politics, business, and especially fashion, who's also fighting for students and people my age. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can move on to the next question. So I do have another question for you. So I really admire your vision for the future of New York. And as you just shared with us, you're working for fighting for social and economic justice and education. And so if you were elected into Congress, so what would be your first courses of action? So what's a goal that you'd like to achieve first, and which one would you want to get started on right away?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a company, I employ people. In this country, we have a tax code for small businesses. My parents are doctors. They're in private practice. My brother is also a doctor in private practice. A lot of times people don't realize that a lot of doctors, lawyers, dentists, CPAs, these are all small businesses. These are very small businesses who maybe employ 2 people, 3 people, 5 people. But the small business tax code in this country is so vast that they define a small business as any company that employs between 1 and 500 people. right? And all of these people pay the same tax code. And so really my first thing on my agenda is getting in there and really defining what a small business is. Because I don't think a small business is a company that is employing 500 people or even 400 people. I think that we need a separate nomination for what is a real small business, maybe, between 1 and 20 employees, and have a special tax rate where we are allowing small business owners to pay their employees more and to have more at the end of the day for themselves. As someone who employs people, I only have 3 or 4 employees. My parents, who have been working for many, many, many years as doctors, community neighborhood doctors, they employ 4 or 5 people. But the problem is that the taxes that they're paying are so high that at the end of the day, they really have to decide, between, giving their employees a little bit more. Their overhead is insane. They're paying unemployment taxes. Then their employees are paying taxes on the money that they're earning. It's just too much. The system, the way it's built now, we pit small business owners against workers. And it's a problem. It's a big problem when these huge corporations that are making billions of dollars, we're giving all these tax incentives to. When, right now we see these oil and gas companies. Imagine we give them $400 billion in tax breaks. These huge companies that are profiting in the billions, they don't need it. My whole point is we need to bail out Main Street, our doctors, our lawyers in our community that are our employers. The little bakeries and the little restaurants that keep our communities alive. These are, the heartbeat of our economy, of where we live locally. And so that's really my goal, is to help people like my parents, to help people who have been employing people for many, many years. But I just feel that our tax system is not made for Main Street. We are all about bailing out Wall Street, big oil, big pharma. But we really are letting our small business owners down. And that's my number one agenda when I get to Congress, is to really, really make a big deal out of our small business tax code. And especially coming out of COVID, it's just ridiculous what we do to small business owners in this country. It's just not fair. So that's my real number one agenda, is just to get in there and make some noise. Because unfortunately, I feel like we have, a lot of people who speak for the ultra wealthy, right? And then we also have a lot of people who speak for the, for the really poor, which is great. But I want to know who's speaking for the middle class, who's speaking for small business owners. I feel like this is a class that really gets ignored a lot. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, these are the people that are employing people in our neighborhoods. This is the heartbeat of our economy, our small business owners. So that's my number one agenda for when I get to Congress, is to fix the tax code.
That's definitely really great. I loved listening to you talk about these goals, and I feel like I'm learning a little more about New York's tax system and small businesses right now. And I feel like small businesses everywhere will thank you all across New York City.
Thank you.
I have one other question. So what is like a quality or a trait that really stands you out from the crowd and you can believe will help you win this election? Like, what are some greatest strengths and how might they help New York?
Sure. Well, I'll be honest with you, Serena, and everyone else who's sitting here. I really think that we are at a very critical point in our country where, things really need to change. I am somebody who has, really lived life. I'm 43 years old. I have seen a few things. I've had some success in the public sector, in business, as well as the nonprofit sector. I've grown a nonprofit from, the ground to become a national, organization. And I truly believe that it's time to get people into politics that are not from what we call the political class in this country. I don't think politicians should be somebody's job title. Do you know what I mean? I think it's time for people who have had experience in the real world to come in, think outside the box, see how we can change things. and then, grow within the system, but not stay there forever. We have these people who have been in Congress for 30 years, 40 years, and they are, they owe people favors. They've taken money from lobbyists. They've taken money from everybody. There are reasons that, the Green New Deal isn't passing. There are reasons why we don't have universal health care in this country. It's not that we can't afford it, because trust me, we can afford it. The money is there. It's just that we're not spending it. We're not investing in ourselves. We're not investing in our children. We're not investing in education. We have the biggest military budget in the world. Our military budget is as big as the next 25 countries combined after us, right? And I don't understand. I just think that we need people who are going to come in with priorities that are more with the goal more towards investing in our future, investing in our children. It's very sad to me that we have such educational inequality in this country. For example, I can tell you very clearly, my children, we've lived in Long Island and we've lived in Manhattan. And my kids have been in public schools in New York City and on Long Island. And the difference between New York City public schools and Long Island schools, it's day and night. It's actually day and night. Long Island, we have resources. The school district that they're in is amazing here in Jericho on Long Island. It's one of the top in the country, but it shouldn't be any difference if these are all public schools, right? I think that we need people who are going to come in who have empathy and who understand, what's happening with our future. Right now, we have this big, everyone is talking about inflation, right? That this is the most inflation that in your lifetime for sure, because they're saying this is the highest inflation in over 40 years. So for you guys, this is the highest that you guys have ever seen.
But
the fact of the matter is that it's not inflation. It's a lot of corporate greed, and we are now paying for the price for decades of just bad policy and politicians being indebted to different, I call them oligarchs in this country. We have oil and gas oligarchs. We have real estate development oligarchs. We are the only developed country in the world that also has healthcare oligarchs. We have these CEOs of these private healthcare companies making millions and millions of dollars. I mean, if you look at it, just the lobby for healthcare, they spend $24 billion a year just to tell us that the healthcare system is good. But at the end of the day, if our private healthcare system was so great, then all of our elected officials would have private healthcare. They all have basically Medicare for all, right? All of our elected officials have government-sponsored healthcare, and I think that the healthcare that they have, everybody in this country should have. So basically, I think what makes me stand out is I don't believe in politics as usual. I think it's time to disrupt the political system. Disruption is a word that we use a lot in entrepreneurship when we're pitching, when we have a startup. What is the startup trying to do? I kind of look at my campaign like a startup, to be honest with you guys. And what we're trying to do is disrupt the political class. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different, is that we're not saying that everything is okay and just kind of following this democratic line. Everything's not okay. And a lot of times, even the things that the Democrats are doing are not okay, right? I think it's time to use common sense messaging, and just start thinking out of the box. And I think that kind of sets me apart, because, although I am part of the party, I'm not part of the party line, where I think I just say things that make more sense, common sense, as a business owner, as a mother, as somebody who is looking to invest in our future here, our children. That's kind of my number one priority.
Thank you so much. So I love your determination and character, and it really brightened up this Zoom room. And I'll bet you shake up politics really well, positively. And your vision for New York and the United States is truly inspiring. I agreed with everything you said. So thank you for bringing these issues really to life. for me, I learned not only a lot about you, but also for New York and the United States in general. So thank you.
No, thank
That's
you.
all the questions I have for me. So thank you for answering those. I know if Chris and Annie have any questions, or if anyone else in this Zoom room has any questions, this would be a great time to unmute and just ask any questions. All questions are wanted, and just feel free to say anything.
I have a question for you. Why do you believe that it's important for students and teenagers to be like knowledgeable about their state and county governments and just government in general?
I think it's so important. So, when I mentioned recently that last year I ran in 2021 as on the Democratic ticket for town council here locally. And it's so funny to me because, I would be campaigning and I would be out, and so many people had no idea, forget students and teenagers, adults had no idea that we have a full town government here, that we have a town board, that we have a town supervisor. Literally, they had no idea. The only thing they knew is that, the guy who collects the taxes, because, they have to pay their taxes. But other than that, they had no idea even what the town does. What do they approve? What do they do for us? They're the ones that fix our roads. They're the ones that fix our sidewalks, make sure that, whoever's opening businesses have permits properly. Whoever's building a house has proper permits. Christopher, I think that, especially for our youth, it's extremely important for you guys to know what's going on. Because it affects everything. It affects everything in our life, and that we don't even realize. We're living our life, we're paying our taxes, we're doing our groceries. The next time you want to go buy a car, all of these things, all of these decisions, there's a base in government that's kind of making the prices go higher, making the prices go lower. Your rights. Right now, a lot of our voting rights are on the line. If any of you are following the news lately, the Congress is trying to pass something called the John Lewis Act, a Voting Rights Act, because in some states, they're actually making it more difficult for people to vote. They're taking away voting centers. They're not letting people do mail-in voting. Everything in this country, especially, my parents immigrated here from India. And, when I look at how things work there and how things work here, I am very proud, and I'm very happy to be an American, because I feel like in this country, it's, you work hard and there's limitless opportunity. It doesn't matter who you know, or, can someone do a favor, or if your uncle is friends with somebody, it doesn't matter. In this country, in India, it does matter. It matters. There's a lot of bureaucracy. You want to get something done, you need 100 people to get that visa, to travel to this country, to do that. And that's why I always say that we are so lucky to be Americans, to be American citizens, to have the rights and the opportunities that we do in this country. For me, for someone who has my degrees literally in fine arts, and to open a finance company, only in America, right? It's just the opportunity, the network, how you can do things, how you can pivot and what you want to do. And the best part about being here is you don't like something, change it. We can change it in this country. And that's part of, my candidacy and why I'm running. So, I always say, Christopher, I have 2 sons. I make them, watch a little bit of news with me every morning, read a little bit of the newspaper with me every evening, because I think it's very important from when we're very young to start understanding our rights and what is happening around us. And getting involved, voting, registering to vote, making sure we know who our candidates are. It's all very important, especially for people like us who come from minority communities. We want to make sure that we have access to every right, and that we are here, our voices are heard, our priorities are being heard, and we're voting for what we believe in and for what we think is right. I know that sometimes it's easier just to ignore it and say, oh, everything is going to be okay. But not all the time is everything going to be okay. We have to know what's going on. And when something isn't right and we don't like something, we have to speak up. We have to be brave and speak up. So we can only speak up, though, if we know what's happening. So it's very important for all of us to be informed. And I always, whenever I have students, I really like to get into, education. Our education is so important, I always say that there's one thing that no one can ever take away from you, and that's your education. It is extremely important to focus, become educated, understand what you want to do. There are always choices, but, that base education, it's extremely important. And we always have to focus, because at the end of the day, and especially, for everybody, but, as a woman, I always say to all the young women, it's very important to be financially independent and make sure that you take care of yourself. You know what you're doing. I have a 10th grader. I'm already every day, I have discussions with him that, listen, 2 more years, college is going to come. We have to really understand, why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that, having a base of understanding how our country works is really just a foundation in all of that.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely believe that too. Education is really important to know what's going around in the world around us. I do have, so Annie has to leave pretty soon, so I will ask the questions for her, so on her behalf. So first one, could you talk more about your plans to help the environment and any specific reason why the environment is important to you?
Sure. So this district that I'm running from, it's actually called a shoreline district, because if you look at a map, which I can email to you guys afterwards, you can see the map of what the congressional district looks like. It actually hugs the shore of the Long Island Sound, from Long Island all the way up to Westchester near Connecticut. And I, here in New York, we have already seen, we had Hurricane Sandy, recently Hurricane Ida. We've faced these superstorms, and, we are an island, here in New York, we're on the coast. And believe it or not, even since then, we still do not have a response for the next superstorm that comes. We have plans, but nothing has ever been decided upon. There's a lot of gridlock on what's supposed to happen. Right now, our planet is in a state of emergency. We have to make a decision right now. And I'll believe it or not, my son, my 15-year-old, he's the one who kind of really got me started with the whole environment and our water quality here in Long Island. I always say that you guys are way smarter than us. You guys, this youth, our next generation. I always feel very excited when I meet and I talk to you guys, because you give me a lot of hope. You guys are so intelligent and so direct about what you think is right and wrong. And I really respect that. So my son, who's in 10th grade, he started with me about our water quality. Our drinking water here in Long Island is awful. It's really bad. And there's a reason. It's because we have extremely outdated underground septic tanks that are leaking into the Long Island Sound. So basically what's happening is we're making a mess of the drinking water of the Long Island Sound. As I said, we have no response for the next superstorm. And especially in our most vulnerable communities that are on the shoreline. I mean, as you can imagine, if you're in a $10 million house in the Hamptons and a storm is coming, it's going to be easy for you to evacuate. But if you're in a little house in the Rockaways, it's not as easy for you to get up and, move around. Everybody knows that, the world is not in a good place right now with our environment. We don't like to talk about it. Unfortunately, the messaging in this country has become so divided that, even environment has become a left and right issue, which is so insane, right? Drinking water shouldn't be a partisan issue. Everybody wants clean drinking water, right? Global warming should not be a partisan issue. Moving away from fossil fuels shouldn't be a partisan issue. But unfortunately, with the discourse in this country being so divided, it's become really just sometimes funny if you think about it. And I think it has a lot to do with how politicians talk to us, how they message to us. At the end of the day, I always say that, I think there's so much more that brings us together than tears us apart. It's just that we have to find those commonalities and we have to get together and fight for it. I think that especially with our environment, how can this be partisan for anybody? I think everybody wants to leave a better, cleaner environment for our future generations. But what we're doing now is going the wrong way. So we have to, we have to get the right people into power who will vote the right way. And we have to move away from, dirty energy and move towards cleaner energy, because especially here in Long Island, we have amazing wind for wind energy, solar energy. We can bring in a lot of high paying green jobs and trainings. It's just a matter of having the right people in DC voting the right way. But yes, absolutely. I think that unfortunately we've made, even the environment a partisan issue, which is so ridiculous. But it's an emergency and we need to change things right away. And the urgency came into me from my son, who is probably closer to your guys' age. And so that's a great question, because I do find that when I speak to younger people, that's almost number one on their agenda is the environment.
Thank you so much. So you really hit upon these like major issues for not only business, but also for the environment. And I'm really glad you're working to speak up about these issues and listen to the younger generation, because we really need politicians like you and small business owners or business owners that really like want to listen to us and help fight for our rights as well. On a side note, you did mention something earlier about paid family leave policies. So could you explain a little on that as well?
Sure. So basically, we are the only developed nation in the world that does not offer paid leave for parents. I think it's extremely important that we come back to the family in this country. Family is important, family is a priority. I find myself, as I said, I'm 43 years old. I have 2 kids, but I also have my parents now who are, close to they're almost 70 in their 70s. And, I find myself as somebody who is looking at the future generation, but also looking at our seniors and thinking about, how our government and policy has really moved away from just the family unit, which is not a good thing, right? I think that, focusing on families, focusing on motherhood, children, giving time for that is very important. And it also helps the economy in the long run when you look at it. Because when people are stable at home with their family and they feel that their families are safe and financially secure, stable, that's how we generate an effective workforce. Happiness, quality of life, these things are important, right? And so I definitely think that we need to come back to the family unit and make policy that supports family, like paid family leave, like, universal health care, universal pre-K. I come from a household where my mother worked full-time and I work full-time. And I think it's extremely important that, in this country, we have a fair system for mothers, for fathers, that we offer universal pre-K that is just as rigorous as private schools, that we kind of close this educational divide that we have with different classes. And so, yes, I absolutely believe that we have to bring the family back to DC, focus on family, and a part of that is paid family leave for workers.
Thank you so much. So I did see in the chat that Angeline has a question, so she can ask that right now.
Yeah. Hi. I know everybody was just interested in our word, because we actually in 10 minutes, we're going to have the Air Chinese Festival. So this is my hometown dress, but, I am actually very supportive down since all the, event to support the Asian community. And also, we also have the Asian Alliance for Impact. We have a mission to collaborate Indian community or other Asian community. So I hope, I just want to say, Reema, I'd like to know, like, how can we support your community, and that our American Chinese community can working with you because I'm not too far from you. I'm in Westchester in Long Island.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
maybe when we meet each other, you can help me to introduce some of your community people.
Oh, absolutely. So, Westchester has now become part of CD3. I'm not sure where you are, but if you're in New Rochelle, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Rye, all of these have been relined into our district now. Right.
Oh, wow. I'm in
Yeah.
Scottsdale. I'm in
Yeah,
Scottsdale.
so you know what? I can send you a link, and you
Great.
can put your because part of Scarsdale is also now in our district.
So
So you may
it means it's but it's not belong to city, but belong to the where you gonna like try to get a competition, right? Okay, good.
right. So basically, this district now has Nassau County, Suffolk County, Queens, Bronx, and Westchester County, because they took the whole shoreline. So they've made it very big. And so maybe you and I can connect afterward.
Yeah,
You might
sure,
even be in
Dawn.
the district.
Yeah, please. And there's couple of the student here host with you also coming from our community. We're very large, more than 20,000 community that we have youth and I have adult. So I'm happy to meet you in person.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
looking forward to
Absolutely.
working with your community. And I actually invited a few Indian coach to come to our community to teach how they can be successful too.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful. That's
anyway, so
wonderful.
sorry that I just have to leave, and I wish the rest of the meeting is successful. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah.
Serena, may I ask a question?
Oh, yes, of course. Go ahead.
Hi, Reema. My name is Cindy. Cindy Cui. I'm really impressed by your talk. Not only as an outstanding, excellent Asian female leader, a successful business person, and also as a mom. I have to say there's at least 2 points that really hit to my heart by your talk. First is, this is the first time I heard someone advocate for middle class from the tax perspective. I have learned that like a very rich people in this country, they have their way to save tax, and then this country is very emphasized for the charity, for the other low salary class people. But for us, like I would say more like a middle class working families, the tax is really it's getting worse. I mean, tax situation. So I'm really appreciate you can bring this out. Because we really work very hard, and then the tax is not fair, this system. And the second point, I'm really appreciate as a first generation immigrants, and as a mom for Asian kids. This country is so different from the country I came in 25 years ago. Now our generation, I mean, our next generation, what the issues they are facing are unacceptable. I totally advocate what you said. This system need to change. I don't have very strong political position. However, I strongly advocate whoever the leader put a young generation in their heart, put in young generation's benefit in their heart when they develop the politics. What they are facing is such a politically divided country, and they came to us, ask the question. So we sometimes don't have a better answer for them. And the global warming issue, the gun violence, all this issue, and the future generation mental health issue. So I really appreciate if you can advocate on the behalf of the younger generation. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I really like your talk.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. And I'll be honest with you. I think you and me have a lot in common. A big reason of why I'm running is because I'm a mom. I think, Cindy, that we need more moms in government, right? And I'm extremely worried for the America that my kids are going to be in when they're adults. It really scares me. Everything that you said, that, the gun violence, the divisiveness, the hate, the racism against Asians that's been growing and building in this country, it's completely unacceptable. And, at the end of the day, look at, this race that I'm in. Within 6 people, I am the only non-white person running, right? In a race, and on both sides, Democrat, Republican. I think that, what I'm trying to do is I have all of my volunteers, all of my interns here. I'm so proud of them. They're all young, first generation, Asian American, Indian American, Chinese American, Korean American. And I'll tell you, they're the ones that are pushing me. When I look at them and they're like, Reema, what are we going to do? How are we doing this? They're the ones that push me because I feel like representation matters. I'm building something for the next person that's going to jump on and run. And I'm building a network, and I want them to know that we can do anything. Yes, I always say, my mother, my father, they always said to me, become a doctor, become a lawyer, what are you going to do when you grow up? But now, many, many years later, my dad always says to me that, no, I'm proud of you. You were the smart one. You open business, it's good. And now you can speak for us and speak for your kids. I have 2 boys. My brother has a daughter. She's only 11 months old. And I'm worried for her. I'm so scared for our kids with, how are they going to become homeowners? How are they going to have the things that we were able to do? Everything is out of control. Housing is out of control. As you said, I grew up with watching my parents work day and night, work so hard. It's not fair for the middle class, for taxes. Exactly what you said, Cindy. And that's what I'm running, because I feel like no one is running to represent people like us. We hear a lot for very uber wealthy. We hear a lot for, below the poverty line. But what about us in the middle class? Who's fighting for us? Who's speaking for us even? Nobody. I don't hear anybody, right? And so thank you so much. And I agree with you. And my whole goal is that, to take those steps. I'll be honest with you. I have my neighbor, her name is Miranda Tan, and she's very active in my campaign. She has 4 children. They go to school with my kids. And we both were looking at the internship of all the Congress, US Congress, the kids who get internship. We were looking at the picture together, and we didn't see anyone who looks like our kids in the picture. So Miranda said, listen, Reema, you have to go so you can pull our kids also to do internships in Washington, D.C. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. So, I really appreciate that, Cindy. Thank you so much. But that is exactly why I'm running, because I feel like our kids, representation matters.
Thank you so much, Reema. Take your effort to, educate us and educate our kids. Thank you.
I would like to add something there. You can go, Don.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. No.
Oh, all right. So I would just like to say your story really resonated with me, and I'm glad to see that you're understanding these situations that are really impacting at least my generation. I've seen, at least in the public schools in my area, I'm fortunate enough to not go to these schools, but I've definitely seen, like, as you said, racism in like the education system, and like really in everywhere around me. And I'm really happy to see someone who's ready to represent my generation. And I'm really glad that you're laying the foundation for the future in politics and just for New York and the United States in general. If anyone has any last questions, this would be a good time.
I have a question. You spoke about the differences between Long Island and New York and how you move between them, the 2 school districts. As a mother of 2 children, what do you think that schools should do to improve education for students and teenagers alike?
Sure. So basically, it's not even about the school when it's about the resources that the school gets from the government. So this also goes back to our taxes, our property taxes, and why they're so high in some suburbs, right? So basically, here in New York, the federal government we give, for every dollar we're giving to the federal government, we only get 90 cents back from the federal government, right? I talk a lot about this, that we don't get our fair share. If only we were to get dollar to dollar back from the government, we'd have an extra $26 billion surplus in the budget. Only 20% of that would cover universal pre-K on Long Island and Westchester County. So there are many things we can do, but just more specifically to the school. So right now, the federal government only funds about 12% of school budgets, right? And so what ends up happening is in suburbs like where we live in Long Island, Westchester, depending on where you live, your school tax is very high, right? And this is a problem residentially as well, because, you know, we have a lot of people like my parents, right? They bought in a school district that was good where they live because my brother and I were going to school, but now they're retired. They don't have any kids in school, but they're still paying very high school taxes because the school district that they live in is quite good. I believe and I propose that the federal government should be paying more to all schools. This way, the schools have more of an equal resource, right? When the federal government is only funding 12%, all of the resource has to come from your property taxes, and that's, you know, from the school taxes. So I feel like this kills two birds with one stone. We have to demand more for our public schools from the federal government, so that our schools are more equitable. And then at the same time, you know, we shouldn't be paying these absurd property taxes that are taxing people out of their homes, that are taxing retirees out of their homes after so many years. Like, you know, my parents are thinking about selling their house when they shouldn't have to. They should be able to retire in their home because they've worked so hard their whole lives, and they should be able to retire in dignity in the home that they built. And so that's, Christopher, where I talk about the inequity and how I feel that it can be fixed. It's just that, especially like New York, California, there are certain states that do not get their fair share back from the federal government, whereas there are these other states that are getting exponentially more than what they pay in. And I think that's something that we need to talk about more, because it's not fair. But that's what happens.
I just raised my physical hand. Hi, Serena. Thank you so much. And I do appreciate Reema to take time to working with all the kids and some parents. And I'm glad that some of them is living in your district. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a very, very powerful the connection. And I think Angela is going to follow up to make something happen there. And also, I'm going to travel to New York City very soon, and maybe you can have your team and the kids have your district have a tour to make sure that they have a physically know every district, every corner there. So it's the most challenge for your campaign at this moment. I think is there's two aspects. One is how to do the fundraising. What my question is how Asian or Chinese community can do some fundraising for you, and I know it's a little bit of challenge. The second part is for the students here, and if they want to join the volunteers team, and how we can team up with your people. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so basically, you know, as in all political campaigns, you know, there's the fundraising aspect of it. It's my least favorite part of being a candidate. You know, I'll be honest with you guys, we have a website, we can always go on, but I'm somebody who really loves to meet people. If you guys know anybody who lives on Long Island, who may live in the district, you know, introduce us. I would love to talk to people. We have a lot of moms groups and a lot of volunteer groups that we meet with, that we go out. Right now we're doing petitioning to get our name on the ballot. So if you guys know anybody that might live here, if you want to, send them our website, let them know about, our campaign, that would be amazing. And for anybody that is looking to volunteer, help in any way, we always are looking for help digitally. You can email, I think Don just put his email in the chat. My email is Reema. I'm going to put my email in there as well, at Reema for Congress.com. It's pretty easy. And I can also send you some resources where you can find out what congressional district you live in, because I think it's so important. And all of you, if you take one thing away from this, make sure you know what congressional district you live in, whatever state you live in, and start looking at who your congressperson is, and start looking at what they talk about and what they believe in, and hopefully it's what you guys also believe in, and make sure that the people representing you actually represent you and your thoughts. So if that's one thing you take away from this, please, everybody, make sure you find out who your congressperson is. And at the same time, though, I just want to thank you, Serena, Christopher. I know Annie's not here anymore, but if you guys can thank her for me. Serena, you did such an amazing job leading this. You are a powerhouse in yourself. And Christopher, thank you. And Don, as always, thank you so much. And I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. As I said, this is my email. Anything, if you want to know, how do you become a candidate? If you guys want to have a Zoom and have a few more questions. As I said, this is my favorite part of being a candidate, is to get to talk to young people, because I think you guys are amazing. Your energy is amazing. And that's what it's all about. I want to see maybe 1 or 2 people from here running one day for a seat. I hope so. I really hope so. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Reema. So we can wrap it up here. Thank you so much for talking with us today. It was really a pleasure meeting you, and I bet a lot of people learned a lot about you today. I'd like to thank Don for granting me this wonderful opportunity and arranging this. I'd also like to thank Chris and Annie also, who were like the backbones of this conference. They ran the behind the scenes of the project. It really wouldn't be possible without them. And lastly, I'd like to thank everyone who attended this conference and meeting. Thank you all for your time, and really have a great night.
Well done. Well done, Serena. Very well done. Have a wonderful night. Thank you again, Don.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.